but we're not quite ending yet because we just have one more small loop, which we'll do quickly, which is to announce this year's shortlist. We had a Zoom judges meeting a couple of weeks ago to choose the 6 on this list, and I won't preface it with a lot of remarks about the kind of books we read. We read about 20. They're all behind me. A lot of them are very good. We had to omit some excellent books. It's always the way, and it was the way again. And once more, all kinds of lovely facts and stories and anecdotes and pieces of cricket paraphernalia trickled out of the book. It was a revelation to learn, for instance, that Sam Curran, the hero of the other day, the near hero of the other day, earned more in last year's IPL than his father Kevin did in his entire first-class cricketing life for Zimbabwe and in England, and many other things beside. But we had to narrow it down to a short list of 6, and we did that. And the 6 are, I will just announce them now, in alphabetical order, as per usual. It's A New Innings by Manoj Badale and Simon Hughes. Manoj is the owner of the Rajasthan Royals, and Simon Hughes is the commentator, who of course we know. And this is a very high-level glimpse of cricket's future, to do with player valuations, a lot of things about the IPL, whether we like it or not. They're the reality of modern cricket, and this is a close-up scrutiny of that. Then The Unforgiven by Ashley Gray, which is about a forgotten incident, the West Indies tour of South Africa. And it's a rather chastening reminder, as the title suggests, that those West Indian players who went to South Africa were never forgiven in the West Indies, unlike our own rebel tourists, who actually nearly all became illustrious grandees of the domestic game. And we don't need to begrudge them that at all, but the sad fact is that for the West Indians who went, they never really have been able to get over it in so many ways amply described in this book. Then there's The Thin White Line by Nick Greenslade, an eminent journalist, a lot of you will know. It's the story of the no ball affair involving the News of the World and Pakistan, and it's a classical behind the scenes, blow by blow, ball by ball, screw up by screw up account, narrative of what happened. And it's a story you think you know until you read this book. It's a book made, I suppose, for this panel of judges, in that it's about cricket and cricket writing, and it's been pulled off extremely well. Then we have Ladies and Lords by Raf Nicholson. The world has been waiting for a really good and serious and entertaining book about women's cricket, and here it is. It's detailed, it's scholarly, it's necessary, and it's on our shortlist. Then Barbed Wire and Cucumber Sandwiches by Colin Shindler is our final book. Again, it's about the cricket tours of South Africa in the apartheid era, 1970 particularly. And we may think we know that story. We may think that there have been quite a lot of books on the Dollar affair and so on. But Colin Shindler's a brilliant writer, the research is impeccable, and he's really able to give it a depth of detail and clarity. And in the context, I suppose, of the culture wars that we're now in again, it's another sobering reminiscence of that very tortured time. Not the MCC's finest hour, perhaps, and therefore a great book for us all to be reading and remembering now. Now, the first thing in applauding all that, yes,
I missed Robert Key.
That's extremely kind of you, John. Thank you very much. I used to be able to count to 6. But 5 is my maximum these days. The Autobiography of Rob Key. It's called Oi Key. This is another of those books that the judges tried quite hard to dislike, partly because there was a superficial amount of kind of cricket dressing room chit-chat, the sort that seemed quite routine. But the more you got into it, it was candid, it was entertaining, it was witty, it was trenchant, it was sharp-witted, and it was an extremely beguiling book. So I do apologize for nearly omitting him from our list, but he is our 6th author. And I was really rushing on to the point. I think I was obviously gabbling because there are so many glaring omissions on that list, not least one of tonight's winners, Duncan Hamilton, who's written another absolutely lovely book, which is an elegy it's the opposite, I suppose, of Simon Hughes and Manoj Badale's book about the IPL. It's an elegy for the county game in England and the expression of Englishness that is achieved through that so many of us love and are sad to see dwindling in its appeal. In most years, I think that would have been an automatic book on our shortlist, as would several others. Another nice book by Ramachandra Guha has been mentioned tonight as one of the great current cricket writers. Or Michael Henderson, a journalist a lot of you will know and admire, who's written another book, also elegiac in mood, about Englishness and cricket, looking at the counties in particular, very deeply felt and personal and sharp way. All of these books, I think, have a right to be on the shortlist. And so they remind us again of how arbitrary this can be. But I hope they also reflect well on the books that are on the shortlist. And as we go forward, we haven't yet chosen a winner. That time will come. Or winners, we're thinking of maybe having a 6-book joint winner next year. We'll be doing our best to reduce it to 1, and it won't be easy. We congratulate all the new authors on the shortlist, but the people we have with us tonight, we're so glad to see you all tonight and to hear from you, and thank you for everything you've contributed to this event. And I will now wind up and pass back to Neil at the MCC, your distinguished librarian, just to do the final pieces of information of tonight's event. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Robert. Well, we've come to the end of an unusual and hopefully unique Book of the Year Awards evening. I'm sure all of us hope that when the 2021 award comes to be announced, we can all be there in the long room to witness the event in person. With that hope in mind, we have provisionally scheduled an awards evening to take place in the long room on the 18th of October this year. But of course, at the moment, this is a purely provisional date. A lot could change over the next 6 months. So please watch this space. All that remains this evening is for me to thank everybody who has played a role in bringing us together tonight. Especially to Jeff Lemon down there in Melbourne. Thank you for getting up at such an unholy hour. It was a tuxedo last time we saw you. It's dressing gown this time, but just as welcome for all that. Thank you to Robert and his judging team for their diligent but presumably very enjoyable efforts. Thank you also to Nigel for administering the award with his usual masterly flair. Thank you also to our Zoom producers, Nick Tudball and Jeff Levitt, without whom tonight simply wouldn't have been possible. And lastly, thank you all, our audience, for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you with us. We're grateful so many of you were able to join us. We hope to see you again at Lord's very soon. Good night to you all.